These are the same people that are mad that certain kids today are snowflakes. It's like, how do you create snowflakes?
You protect them from all divisive concepts. They did not wait for hope to descend upon them like some sunbeam, because they knew that nothing good comes from a place of nihilism or cynicism, that change is possible from the fertile soil of hope. We actually don't have to sit and wait around for a completely ineffective Congress to get their rears in gear. We don't have to wait around for some of these people who are 900 years old to retire. We don't have to wait around for the right president to get elected. That despite our circumstances, nothing can change in our external circumstances, and yet we have all of the power in the world to change ourselves and how we interact with the rest of the world. And the people in this book demonstrate that over and over again, that they chose to have hope, that there was a better future ahead. They did not wait for hope to descend upon them like some sunbeam peeking out from behind a cloud. They did not wait to feel a feeling of hope. Hope was something that they chose and acted on because they knew that nothing good comes from a place of nihilism or cynicism, that change is possible from the fertile soil of hope.
How do you give that to kids? As I struggle with this, where it's like I despair and feel scared and anxious, and yet like you want to be realistic, and that also the whole point of generations is you're supposed to move it forward. How do you think about this with kids?
Yeah, I think kids can understand that you can choose to do something even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Right? That
sure.
You can choose to not hit your sister even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
You can choose to not throw pencils in the classroom even when you feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And that hope is something that we can choose even when we don't feel it. And it requires, it's an exercise in many ways, it's an exercise in self-control, to not allow ourselves to get run away, to not allow our emotions to run away with all of our thoughts, and to allow those thoughts to guide all of our actions. It's an exercise in self-control to say, no, I refuse to allow this temporary circumstance to completely derail my important work.
Yeah.
And to have the courage to say, I am going to do what it takes, even though I don't feel like it. And that can only come from choosing to hope.
And also maybe that we can, as a family, start very small. So like what can we personally do about this thing? You know what I mean? Like we can pick up this trash by the side of the road. We can donate, the money we were going to spend on this thing to that thing instead. Like how do you sort of, like Aristotle said, we should see generosity and, kindness and all these things, not as like a trait you possess or don't possess, but as a verb, like an activity you do or don't do.
Yeah, I think so often we make the problems so large, and when we're feeling overwhelmed by the problems of the world, because you're right, the problems of the world are endless.
Yeah.
That the way that we can begin to feel like we are making an impact is to right size the problem.
Yeah.
Right? To stop thinking about, well, I need to change the world, and start thinking about, I need to impact the people inside the confines of my home, or at my workplace, or in my own classroom, or in the town that I live in, or at the school board level. And for some of us, we might have the opportunity to make big impacts at a state level or a national level, but that's not where most people's impacts will be.
Yeah.
Their impacts will be in their community. And those ripples may have broader effects in the future, just like some of the people in this book. But nevertheless, when the problems feel too big and overwhelming, you need to right size the community. And stop thinking about, I have to fix childhood hunger writ large.
Yeah. You could pay off some school lunch debt at your neighborhood high school.
That's right. Or you could feed one child. You could do for one what you wish you could do for all of them.
Yeah.
And that that gets you out of that state of inertia, that
Yeah.
gets you out of that mindset of nothing I do matters, because you see the difference that it makes for one person, and you realize what you do actually does matter.
Yeah. You could also run for a school board or
Yes.
volunteer
Yes.
at a school.
Yes. And those kinds of things seem possible
Yeah.
once you begin to move forward.
And don't you think parents have an obligation to be informed by and then inform their children of like the kinds of people that you're talking about in your book? You know what I mean? Like I do wish as a child, like, yeah, you learn about Napoleon, you learn about George Washington, you learn about these huge, larger than life figures. And maybe there's some of us who go, just like somebody goes, I think I should be president. We go, that's like me. But I don't know. There's something about finding these more relatable, smaller figures where you go, oh yeah, these were just regular people.
Yeah, I totally agree. That these, it seems like it makes making a difference feel accessible.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's something that you actually are capable of doing. That these are people who came from nothing, or whose parents were enslaved, or had incredibly tragic life circumstances that nobody would ever want to trade places with.
Yeah.
Who just kept choosing the next right thing, and that's a power that's accessible to all of us.
Yeah.
The power to choose the next right thing. It does not require us to amass large amounts of social following or huge bank accounts. That each one of us can choose the next right thing. Even if we're 5 years old, we can practice it. If we're 10 years old, we might have better mastery over choosing the next right thing. Frankly, there's a lot of adults who still need to work on this skill. But much like liberty, which is an ongoing effort, this is an ongoing effort that each one of us is tasked with, to choose the next right thing throughout our lifetimes, and not something that is a final destination that we're going to arrive at. Not a thing of like, well, I did that and I'm good.
Yeah, and also I think we are doing important work, sort of showing the more realistic nature of history. That the unpleasantness that we've plastered over for generations is essential. At the same time, if you don't replace that with other people or non-garbage people, basically, you end up instilling a kind of cynicism and nihilism.
That's right.
And a hopelessness. Like the failings are obvious. But who had fewer failings, or, how do you find some way to, I think Alex Haley said that the job of a writer is to find the good and celebrate it. And I mean, this is a guy who writes some pretty dark books, right? So that he believes, but the idea that, your job is to find things worth sharing and talking about, not just poking holes in popular narratives.
I totally agree. I think you're right that for too long we have whitewashed over much of the bad things of history in an effort to spare ourselves from discomfort.
Yeah.
And in an effort to spare our children from discomfort. And you see this movement afoot in the United States today too, that we shouldn't talk about things that make people uncomfortable or that are divisive concepts. That's the word that we use for it today. It's a divisive concept. Which is just silly.
Yeah.
It's silly.
These are the same people that are mad that certain kids today are snowflakes. It's like, how do you create snowflakes?
You protect them from all divisive concepts. People don't realize that you cannot ever learn to think critically if you're never presented with ideas with which you disagree.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've just been spoon-fed propaganda if you only hear things you agree with all day long.
Yeah. If you like it, it's probably not history.
Yeah. The idea that you, if of course most people would say, I think that critical thinking is important, or they like to view themselves as critical thinkers, but that we should also protect children from anything that is difficult.
Yeah.
These ideas are diametrically opposed to each other. You can't have both.
Yeah.
So choose one, right? We don't want to upset our children. And what we mean by that is we don't want to upset certain children. We're fine with upsetting other children.
Yeah.
We don't want to upset the children that look like our children. That's the real subtext here, right? But nevertheless, we've whitewashed over so much of history. People have woken up to that fact, and they feel lied to. They feel, they feel lied to, and that makes them angry. But if we never give them anything else to look to as a replacement, they're just going to be left with nothing but feelings of rage.
Yeah.
And that is not the place from which good things can grow.
Yeah. Right. What are you telling them that does give them hope? Like, you know that poem, Good Bones?
Mm-hmm.
I love that poem. Like that, to me, that's your job as a parent. To be like, yeah, this place is almost a tear down, but not quite. The bones are pretty good. I think you could turn this into something. That's how you have to explain the world to your children. If you're like, this is amazing, look at it's like, yeah, they're gonna buy it and then live it and realize, no, it's falling apart.
Oh,
and
my
it's
parents
awful.
lied to me.
Yes, exactly. Or I mean, if someone tells you, if you were buying a house and someone obscured all the problems with it, they didn't fill out the disclosures properly. That's fraud, you know? So you would be very, and rightfully so, very angry at someone who did that to you. However, if, you don't, what a neighborhood needs is people who see the potential in a dilapidated piece of property and they turn it into something amazing and then someone lives there and it's worth more money and blah, 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 blah. That's
But they
our
can
job.
only do that if they choose to have hope that what they do will make a difference, right? If they look at the dilapidated house and they're like, F it.
Yeah.
I hate all of it. Nothing will ever change. No amount of work will make it better. It's the whole thing's terrible. I hate this neighborhood. This entire state's the worst. I'm moving to Canada. That is not where you can make positive change from.
Right. No, but if they are handy and creative and determined and blah, 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 if they bring a set of skills to that, there is no house so dilapidated that it can't turn it into something.
I love that.
I love this too.